The September issue of Exceptional Parent magazine focuses on the elderly and those who care for them. Sign up for free and read it today at www.epmagazine.com.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of REITs Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, Two Lives at Once. And with every wreath you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. Two Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, two lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to REITsAcrossAmerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's REITsAcrossAmerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
Suicide is preventable, and each of us has a role to play in suicide prevention.
Suicide is complex. There is no single cause.
And it's not always a mental health issue. It could be loss of a job or home, financial or relationship issues, pain, or leaving the military.
Suicide does not discriminate. It affects all ages, races, and genders, veterans or not.
If you know a veteran who is struggling, connect with them. Let them know help is available.
There is quick and easy access to services in times of crisis.
Dial 988, then press 1. Talking about it is okay.
Don't keep it inside. Don't be ashamed. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis, Marine Corps veteran and your host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubazoo Network. You can find out more on hubazoo.com. I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asek of Asek Real Estate, Army National Guard veteran Mark Holmes of Reapers Detailing and Power Washing, and my supporters, Caisson Shaving Company with Travis Arnold and Exceptional Parent Magazine. Thank you very much, Faye Simon. Hey, we are blasting through 2024. It's just going, full throttle, missions in flight. And I want to thank Riccoh Player from ParadeDeck for connecting me with my next guest, Ben Monette, Army veteran, Green Beret, and just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And you want to stay tuned to Oscar Mike Radio because this is just one of 4 parts. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. He's doing so much that I couldn't compact it into one show. We're doing 4. And that's just because more is always more. Less is never more. So we're going to give you more Ben for the next 4 months. It's going to be awesome. Ben, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Yeah, Travis, thank you very much. And I really appreciate the willingness and to allow me to share my story and to share the initiatives I have going on. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
There's a lot of stuff we're going to uncover it all. This first one is just all about you and what you do, and what I like to do with veterans, because we all serve, but we all have a different story. And so starting out, how did Ben grow up? Was it always in the Nashville area? And we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I'm a northerner through and through. I grew up in Ohio. my life was, I had no really big traumatic experiences in my life. A blue collar family, raised up in a sporting environment. My sister swam. I played soccer and golf, and early on in my adolescent years, I really transitioned into focusing solely on soccer, and due to that, it enabled me to receive a Division I soccer scholarship to Bowling Green State University. So that was really like the first time that really instilled in me that hard work pays off, and if I'm determined and motivated and dedicated, then my goals can be accomplished. And that was that was it. And that continued to do that in the military. However, I started instilling some unhealthy behaviors in some unhealthy ways. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But that was the first pivotal moment in my life. Reflecting back, that was the effort was put in, the hard work, the result was achieved. Right.
D1 soccer, Bowling Green. You're on the pitch, kicking the ball down the field. What position did you play?
So I played midfield, and I enjoyed it. I really did. I not necessarily enjoyed the cold weather up on the Ohio and Michigan border. However, it was good. I enjoyed that. Played that for 3 years, and in between my junior and senior year, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And maybe I was in denial, but I was like, well, I'm not going to play professional soccer for my career, right? So what do I want to do? And during the time at Bowling Green State University, that was the main focus, was soccer. So I transitioned down to University of Dayton in Ohio, and then received my bachelor's degree about a year after.
So how do you go from soccer player, Midwestern, upper Northern guy to, the U.S. Army, called you?
Yeah. Well, I always knew, right, of the Green Berets. All right. I always knew of special operations. I always knew of the military, and I always admired them. My dad's father, my grandfather on that side, served in the Navy, and I grew up in a patriotic family. But never did I think I was going to join the military. And I just, you hear a lot of individuals. I grew up I was 3 years old. I wanted to be a Green Beret, and that wasn't me. And at some point in my life, there was a turning point of what was I going to do? Was I going to be stuck in Ohio? Is this what my life entailed? Did I want to do, reach my potential? And what was my potential? Right. And all those questions I didn't have an answer to. And at the time I was an outside sales rep for a custom home builder. And I, how there's Army, all the recruiting stations are lined up back to back. And I was like, you know what, I know of them, right? I know of the opportunities. I support our country. I'm patriotic. Let's see what's the opportunities here. And I left that office with, either a contract to get a chance to attend Special Forces assessment and selection, or become an officer. So I went home and did some soul searching, and really sat and thought hard. And then I included my family and gathered their input. And 3 weeks later, I was off to infantry school and basic training down in Fort Benning, Georgia. So that was a really quick turnaround.
So you didn't do the officer route. You went enlisted.
No, I did.
Okay.
I went enlisted, and one of the reasons why was I wanted control of my destiny. If I didn't pass the many different, tests to become a Green Beret, I wanted it because of me. And as an officer, it was more of, hey, what branch you're going to go into, and then what's your score. And it was really kind of out of my hands, and I didn't like that. I wanted control. And if it was going to be if it was going to be a success, it was going to be because of the effort I put in, or a failure is because of the effort I did not put in. And I like that. And so that's the route I chose.
Now, one thing I kind of want to clear up for people, because there's the emphasis on the SEALs, and the Marine Corps has MARSOC, the Marine
Yeah.
Raiders. The Air Force has they're more of a special forces rescue unit more than anything else, but they're there. And then you have the Rangers and Green Berets. And some people, and I can understand why, think that they're all the same, just different flavors. But as I understand, the Green Berets are very unique in what they're designed to do for the Army. And I just was kind of curious if you kind of tell people how the Green Berets differ from like the Rangers, or, what's everybody knows what the SEALs are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think the global war on terror really forced all the units, conventional units up to special operations units, into conflict and combat operations. And we got away from our core, tendencies, or our core attributes. And for for a Green Beret, we are, there's two words that come to mind, unconventional warfare, and that's working, by, with, and through a partner force to accomplish a mission, and a strategic mission. And at the end of the day, I break it down as we are force multipliers, right? There's a small group of us, ideally 12 men. However, most of the time, 9, 10 individuals are in a remote location across the world, training our partner force. And these partner forces can be, a couple hundred to 1,000 individuals, and training them on all core aspects of combat, maneuverability, tactics, shooting, medical, communications, right, engineering. So all these different aspects we include into our training to become a force multiplier, where we are now a massive unit, and we can accomplish more because of the size of the force. And that is something unique to the Green Berets. And we're able to do this because we put a high level of focus towards learning a second language, and that language enables us to build rapport, to connect with our partner force, to train them in their target or their native language, and just to be more effective, whether it's on the range training, or in a combat situation.
You go through this selection process, which is arduous in itself, and you become a Green Beret. What was that like? Because it's when I became a U.S. Marine, it was a very unique experience, but I didn't have the mission you all had. I guess when I say what was it like actually being a Green Beret when you actually became one and started going out and doing your actual role?
Yeah. Wow. There's multiple phases of that,
Yeah,
right? When I passed SFAS and was selected, that was a monumental moment. But that
right.
moment was short lived, right? Because I knew that wasn't the end, right? The end was to earn the Green Beret. So I still had a year and a half worth of training. So that was, and then I'll get through into this, but that was like the top of the mountain. And then me ultimately looking, what's next? Where's the next mountain, right? And that's the kind of path and pattern or habit that I began to develop in the military, that wasn't the best reflecting back, right? I never took time to sit there and be like, I just passed, a difficult, assessment and selection. Let's give myself some grace. Let's give myself you know, some gratitude and move on. But let's remember that. And that was start of the path of my career of, okay, goal accomplished. What's next, right? And during that year long, the Q course, right, of you have small unit tactics, you have language, you have your MOS, your specialty, which for me was communications, and you have a culmination exercise. Each one of those was gates that I passed, right? And once I earned the Green Beret, that's when it was again that okay, now let's get to work, right? Like, okay, what can I learn now? I have the basics, but the basics aren't going to excel me in becoming a Green Beret. And so that was the struggle. Is that was I got to Fifth Special Forces Group in late 2011, and that was coming in. I was older, right? I graduated college, so I was more mature. I knew that although I did have my Green Beret, those individuals on my team who has a lot more experience, I can learn from them. So it was quick, like, okay, hey, I know my place on the team. I'm new. I'm going to learn as much as possible of what to do, what not to do, and then incorporate my past and my past experiences in the person Ben was into those, and mold it into the person I became. Um, that was I guess monumental moment was me arriving at fifth group. That was the part where it was like, okay, not then Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty was in the past, right? That I accomplished all those gates, those tests, and now it's okay, I'm here, right? And that was the kind of like one of the cinder blocks released off my shoulders. But it didn't allow me to be stagnant or complacent. It was like, okay, I now have to learn exactly what this team does and how this team operates and how can I best be value added into that.
Did you ever find yourself looking for proverbial mountains to climb, challenges that you had to overcome? And was it, you said struggles, was it a struggle when everything was kind of like, hey, steady state, there's nothing going on, I'm not having to climb or go anywhere, like, holy moly, what's happening? This is weird. Or was it just, you know, you like to be in the action all the time?
Yeah. Well, there's no steady state, to be honest with you. And I think
Okay.
I could have created some. But when I deployed, um, I got there in 2011, deployed early in 2012. It was a short deployment, and then right after I went, in 2013, went to Ranger School, and then went to a 3-month course, after that. And so 6 months of my steady state, right, was me seeking other ways to A, enhance my skill set, and B, become more valuable to the team. And that was something that I continued to do. And that's what probably like, we're comfortable in chaos. A lot of us are, especially I would almost argue all, you know, service members and veterans are comfortable in chaos. Well, when there's no chaos, do we create our own? And
Well,
oftentimes,
that's what I was trying to like when there's no
yeah,
chaos, the monsters really can come in and kind of, things
absolutely,
can happen, right?
yeah, and that's was it whether it was chaos in my head internally, right, mentally, or if it was chaos in my relationships or my soon to be family after I got married, like there was so much. So I countered that by not learning and learning how to be comfortable in steady state. I countered that by continuing to seek ways to improve myself and different schooling to enhance my value on the team. So that's the next mountain, right? It was the looking back on it was 2013 Ranger School, and then another 3-month course, and then 2014 to 2016 I did 4 months on, 4 months off, 4 months on till 16. After 16, went to combat dive school. After another deployment, and then I went to warrant officer course, and then so there's all constantly next, 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 and that's when how I said early on after I graduated, Pat or was selected in SFAS, is that's that routine that I fell in. And I think a lot of individuals do that. And especially regardless of what service and what you did with the GWAT, and the war on terror that enforced that. You deployed for a year or 6 months, you come back, you have a little downtime, but now it's right back into, train up, and now you have, NTC or JRTC, and then you go into your deployment, and it was just a constant, uh, you know, progress, and we're constantly doing something. And now, as we're slowly having that steady state in today's conflict, and now a lot of those GWAT individuals got out. It's now we're seeing the mental health, the suicide rate, all these important things that we were able to bury deep down because we were focused on the mission. Well, the mission is not as prevalent now. So what are we doing? And I think this is the time that, collectively as a country, especially the veterans, need to come together and say, hey, we need to tackle this mental health. We need to tackle this because you can't argue with history. Conflict is a revolving door. There will be conflict in the future. When, I don't know, but we need to utilize this law in our history to focus mentally and focus on, our individuals who are still serving, but also the individuals that gave a lot for our country during the GWAT era and before, and how can we set them up for success and take care of them, and prove to them that they still value and they still have purpose, right? So that's where I think, kind of moving forward, that's how that steady state should be at least focused on, or the things that we should focus on during this time.
Before we go into some of your challenges and
Yeah.
struggles, I want to touch on, maybe get your opinion about something, because I've talked to several World War II veterans who had a very different experience from you and me. And I didn't serve in combat, but very different experience. And when you think about it, Ben, we declared war on Japan in 1941, and we were done in 1945, under 4 years. Whereas, the global war on terror encompasses almost 25. I get asked all the time, well, how were they able to just, go to war and be fine? And I'm like, I don't think they were at war with the sustained, up-tempo mission focus that the global terror and war veterans had to deal with. And a lot of them, I've talked to a lot of them, Ben, they came home on the plane, train, or automobile. Their room was still there. Their clothes still fit. Mom had dinner for them Saturday night. They went to church Sunday morning, and Monday they went to work out in the farm with their dad, or their dad had a job for them already. Way different than you and me. And
Yes.
so I'm curious, do you think there was an aspect where, for lack of a better term, the veterans during this time just got, for lack of a better term, overused and overworked? Or was it really, maybe they're not as tough as they were back then? And I'm not buying that, but I hear some of
Yeah.
that's an opinion that's out there.
I think there's a lot of variables, right? And I have
Yeah.
this conversation often. I think our society now has a lot more variables and a lot more touch points than, World War II vets and even Vietnam vets. And although those two types of veterans had completely different, experiences when they returned home, now, and I agree with you, and I like that how you said, overused, overworked, right? There was a constant, right? And we were constantly turning and burning. It was constant war, right? And that, not saying anything about the past, but this was a different war, right? It
Yeah.
was different, and it was publicized differently, right? And as our society became more aware of what was going on, the flow of information, the ability to communicate to the masses of mistakes, of things that, a 18, 19, 20-year-old was responsible for doing in a split second. Those are all different now. And I think that now, being exposed to that, we didn't have enough time to really focus on that. It was return home, okay, you're okay. Yes, I'm okay. And we all know the classic, "Are you fine?" "Yeah, I'm fine," which means you're not fine. But that was the routine,
Mm.
is it didn't matter what was going on at home, because guess what? When you go back Monday to work, you're focused on, either A, you're focused on deploying, or B, you're focused on, 10, 20, 50 individuals that are over in the deployed at the moment, right? And you're probably talking to them, right? Because you have the communication capabilities to do that now. Um, so tough question, because there's so many different variables in place now. However, it's just different,
Yeah.
and I think it's hard to draw parallels to that. However, our society has played a big role in how, you know, we have returned home, and the social media, that it's just very impactful now, and that is part of us. And for lack of a better, it is what it is, and it's you can use it to good, or you can use it for the negative. But I, I'm glad that the GWAT is kind of obviously slowed down significantly. There's still troops deployed, and we still need to provide a presence. And I'm a firm believer of, I would rather fight on someone else's soil than bring it to us, right? Because we know what that happens when that does. And uh, so we need to be relevant. We need to stay vigilant. We constantly need to improve, but we also need to learn from our past, and how can we improve. Uh, these younger individuals returning back from a deployment, and how do we keep them hungry? How do we keep them motivated when there's not a lot going on? And I think we're seeing that now with the retention and the recruiting struggles, service wide.
Yeah.
Is we're again, joining the military is not as admirable. Joining the law enforcement or becoming a police officer is not as admirable as it used to be, and that's unfortunate, but that's reality. And so, how do we combat that? How do we shift that? I wish I knew. I wish I knew that answer, but it's
Well,
difficult.
speaking of which, there's answers that we're never going to know the answer to, and there's certainly, I think you hit it on the head. There's a lot of variables between the generational conflicts, wars that we had. One thing, reading about you and us talking, you said, you have some challenges that got you where you are today. Some of them positive, some of them negative. But in your military experience, in your military service, you'll describe some of those to us, because, you know, some people think, oh, it's just all like GI Joe and, action, and it's not there. And so I like people to understand the actual human side of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I struggled with um, coping with my negative thoughts, coping with, you know, war, PTS, coping with depression, anxiety by isolating and numbing myself. And I was with alcohol. And excuse me, and as I continue to transition into what I'm doing now, I really reflect on, when did this behavior begin? And I would argue that it was way before the military. And through high school and college, yeah, I drank, and yeah, I partied, and I enjoyed it, but I was still successful. So there was never any rock bottoms or catastrophic events that occurred in my eyes. Probably in my parents' eyes, yes. But as I went into the military, that's when it really accelerated. Bonding with other men with drinking is a common theme, right? But when drinking turns into numbing your feelings and deciding to um, hide behind a bottle because you're unwilling or afraid to get the help that you need at that moment, that's when it becomes a problem. And I was able to convince myself that I didn't have a problem. As how I outlined my military career, I've done a lot of different schools, and I've accomplished a lot. And all during that time, I was drinking. So I was able to say to myself, well, I'm doing my professional life is
Yeah.
accelerating, right? But my personal life was just in the weeds, and it wasn't. But I was able to be in denial because I was able to focus and pivot and compartmentalize my personal mental health and just focus on my professional side. And I was the type of person who drank that it didn't matter what was the outcome. If we're celebrating something, a promotion or a return back at home, or a birth of a child with my son or another teammate, let's drink. Or if it was me losing a buddy, stateside or abroad, or something catastrophic happened, well, let's drink. And that was the routine. And it wasn't until about a year and a half ago, when I returned from getting help, that I really understood what my brain was thinking and how my brain was acting during those moments of stress and depression and anxiety. And that's the knowledge aspect of it that I push so hard, especially in today's society, with knowledge at our fingertips with the phone. I was able to understand why I was doing the things that I was doing. And so throughout my career, I drank, and sometimes there was good times, sometimes was bad times, but it continued to spiral downward, right? And the depression, anxiety continued to eat away at me. And there was a lot of times when the words "I'm fine" came out of my mouth.
And you weren't fine.
And I wasn't fine.
No.
Absolutely not. And there was times when I thought to myself, man, I have a problem. But what I do, I compartmentalized that. I isolated more, and I didn't receive the help, or at least entertain the idea of getting help, right? And I could have, early on in my career, alleviated me going to a treatment facility by probably talking to someone, saying, hey, let's get this settled now, and let's start getting a better habit and a better routine now, instead of waiting to the point of no return, to the point where I needed a higher level of care to get the help and to return back to normal, and to start instilling a healthier habit and healthier beliefs.
Now, how long were you in the Army for, Ben?
So I was in the Army for 16 and a half years.
Okay. Did you start getting help for this problem toward the end of your career, or was help? Did you make the choice to get help after you got out?
No. So towards the end of my career,
Yeah.
2021, I raised my hand. I had a course that I was going to go up to and do, and it was a long course. It was a 6-month course, and I knew, and that was probably the pivotal moment, is I knew I wouldn't be successful. But at the state I was at right then, I would not be successful. So I raised my hand, and I said, hey, I have a problem. And they said, okay, well, here's a program that you can go to. Now, this is what I'm a huge advocate of doing your research prior to saying, hey, I want to go someplace. And I said, okay, I'll go. I didn't do any research. I said, excuse me, I'll go. And it was a 30-day program. And I left that program not with the skills, not with the tools to handle, my negative self-talk, my, depression, my anxiety, but the determination to stay sober. Right? I didn't have the skills, but I had the motivation and determination. And
but no, I don't know much about this.
Yeah.
But 30 days to me, as a layman, does not seem like an adequate amount of time for new behaviors, motor patterns, and old behaviors to be put away. So I mean, it just seems like a very either A, compressed time frame, or B, a lot of unhealthy optimism. I mean, that's just my view of it. I don't know if I'm.
100% agree with you.
Oh,
No,
really? Okay.
you are 100%. I 100% agree with you. And no, it's not. And tackle combat operations, PTS,
Right. To work through all
all
that.
these things on top of that was not near enough. And the program was, I had one therapy session a week. Clearly not enough, right? And so when I returned from that program, two things happened. One, I was able to stay sober for 18 months.
All right.
Not because I had the skills and the tools or the duration, and there's data out there that it takes 30 days to create a healthy habit, but it takes almost 4 times as long to break a bad habit, right? So although I had those healthy habits, I still had those urges, but just by sheer determination and grit, I decided that I was going to stay clean. Now, here's the tricky part. I thought if I delete alcohol from my daily life, I would magically get better. And I was wrong. I was mad. I didn't handle life. The life stressors that come to you every single day that I used to just drink away and hide, I couldn't do that anymore. So how was I supposed to handle life stressors now without my go-to, my go-to fix? And those 18 months was very difficult for me. It was frustrating. It was, although I continued and there was great days and there was bad days, I wasn't healthy mentally, right? Physically I probably was, but mentally I wasn't. And, I would say early last year, some things happened with my marriage, and I ended up making the decision to relapse. And it was just to the point where caveat, one last thing, sorry to backtrack, but during those 18 months, I also had I did not utilize one thing, and which I utilize today every single day, is I did not create or join a community. I did not have a community. So those 18 months battling life, I battled it alone.
Wow.
Exactly. And so that you'll understand how important that is as I continue. But so early last year, had a rock bottom moment. A lot of things happened with now ex-wife, and I decided and made the choice to relapse. It was, hey, are you fine? Yeah, I'm fine. And I immediately, went to a hotel and relapsed. That lasted 7 days. On the 5th day, I actively tried to kill myself drinking, and I was in a dark place. It wasn't that I had a couple, drinks here and there. It was 100% back to my normal, and my body wasn't, couldn't handle it, and my mind couldn't handle it. And I went to very, very, very dark places. I didn't want to be a part of life anymore. And, after leaving the hospital, my behavioral health clinician said there's a facility that is a 3-month-long facility. They focus on, physical fitness. They focus on knowledge. They focus on community, and you'll get a lot of therapy and to work on your unhealthy habits, but also your PTS and your depression and anxiety. And I said, okay, I need to go someplace. I can't turn it around by myself. And that's what led me to Treehouse Recovery.
So we're going to talk about Treehouse Recovery and our next time of recording. And I understand that that really kind of got you on your way, but it really reminds me that a lot of people, veterans included, go through so many things alone and without a tribe or a team or a family unit to, when I say family unit, like a group of bros or, even sisters, as annoying as they can be, to kind of, hey, how are you doing today? Oh no, don't BS me. I know you're, no, we're going to come in here and talk this out. That m- is missed so much by people, and we can't do, we don't serve alone,
Exactly.
right? And I'm thinking about times where, I kind of liked being in pain. I don't know if that means anything to you, but I got used to it very quickly. And it was hard for me to open up to the people to talk to them about certain things. As you transitioned out and started this new journey, was there any aspect of hope or, excitement about the future, or was it just trying to get through the day one foot in front of the other and rely on everything that you've done to do that?
Yeah. So I was able to go to Trios when I was still active, right? So I was able to return and face the massive transition, the identity loss, the the new life, all that stress of transitioning soldiers experience with the tools and the skills that I learned that were still fresh in my mind, right? And I relied heavily on uh, my community for that. And but yeah, the fact that I was fortunate enough to be able to get to go to this facility, Treehouse, and return, and then face this Goliath of a obstacle. Um, I was fortunate. Not a lot of individuals get that, and
No,
so
no,
go ahead.
was that, now just correct me here, so you were still active duty when you went to Treehouse?
Correct.
So in that way, I want to just focus on this because sometimes commands take the brunt of, well, my command didn't help me, so I fell off the wagon. I did this, I did that, and that's why it happened. But it seems like for whatever reason, we can get into it, your command looked at you and said, "Hey, we're going to get you help. First time didn't work. We're going to put you in this program and support you." That had to be, that doesn't. You're right. It doesn't happen very often, but it did in this case.
Yeah, and after I knew going to get help, I knew that the transition was next, right?
Yeah.
Me transitioning out. I knew that was the case, and so that was difficult, but I was able to deal with that or handle that in a productive way in treatment and come to terms with that. And a lot of commands are willing to help, right? And if you show the fact that you want that help and you're receptive to that help, then I think they will. And I think that's changing. I think that stigma of I can't ask for help because I'm going to lose my security clearance, I'm going to get out, I'm going to get kicked out, I'm going to do all these things. Um, that is that stigma is decreasing. I think it's still there, and in some commands, that's probably still utilized. But I would hope, right? Don't quote me on this, but for the majority of commands that actually care about the person, not just the soldier, um, they want you to be better. They want you to be healthier. And if in my case, that was the case. And so I'm lucky. Uh, but it was difficult. It was definitely, there's a lot of, what could I have done better? How could I have reacted this? And then replaying the past, right? And we all know how slippery of a slope that can
Yeah,
become.
you can't go
Uh,
back.
exactly. So me being able to understand and handle and unpack that while in treatment, I was fortunate for that. But I knew that the transition was going to be difficult, and the fact that I now have to find a new purpose, a new identity. And that's had its ups and downs, throughout this past year of 2024. But again, I continue to try to find I shift my perception a lot of times, and I look at, okay, this is the path, like you just said, reality, and I can't go back in the past. But what I can control is my choices moving forward, and I've continued to state that, and I've done a lot of work on myself personally, and I focused a lot on it. And now, my goal is to prove that it can be done. And a lot of times the I'm fine or that stigma's there, and I don't want to ask for help. The help's out there, but it always starts with that service member. And if that service member catches it and says, "Hey, I need some help," most of the times the command will be receptive and get the help that they deserve. So yeah, it was definitely, looking back on it, it was, I never really thought about it this way, but I was kind of lucky having those new, fresh tools ready to utilize as this massive transition and identity began.
So we're gonna kind of wind it down here, because we talked about this. The next part of this, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be 4. You're going to see Ben over the next 4 months on Oscar Mike Radio talking about his story in depth. I couldn't make it all go into one show, and I didn't want to cut anything down. But we're going to pause here and then come back and talk about Treehouse Recovery, right? And how that part helped your transition and what you do now. So we're mission flight. The missile's still heading for the target. This isn't the end, but we're just going to do like a part 1, an intermission. And then next month you'll see, the part where Ben picks us up and talks about Treehouse Recovery, the end of his transition and what he's doing now. So with that being said, we're mission flight. Ben, don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Remember, on it teaches our mission. We care about it, we do it every day. But I think there are things that just hit you and give you a reason to go on. The theme for our 2024 for Reach Across America is Live with Purpose. It just seemed to fit in with the vows of the REAP, the 10 attributes that we feel represent our United States military. And I thought, what a great opportunity to put those two things together and show our kids through how we act some of the things that can make their lives better, their communities better, and by doing that, the country better. For me, Live with Purpose, I think, it's a mindset. Set some guidelines and then go out and purposefully make life different, make a change. It's an opportunity to set an example.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinister One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.